Hey, how's it going, you guys? Welcome back to some more Hello Lady. We are now in Sorako's route. I'm just going to go ahead and skip straight to this, but I will leave some instructions on how to get into her route, just in case you are curious, in the description. So you can go ahead and check that out. But I just went ahead and skipped to where we are finally on her route. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to see what Sorako's route's going to be like. We actually know quite a bit about her, and I feel like we've gotten closer to her in the main route than most of the other girls. So we'll see how this goes. I reminisced about the sky I'd gazed up at long ago. Young fingers had pointed at a rainbow decorating it. The vibrant colors that sliced through the sky inspired me to dash toward it. I'd had dreams of catching up to that bridge in the sky, but they'd since become a mere vision of days lost. A little over half a month had passed since I eliminated my first target, Takashi Hanazono. My normal days in Tenkawa Noble Academy continued, hiding my unease. But there was no rest for Shinri Narita, the Avenger. The next stage had already been set. The interlude ended and the next act had begun. I'm curious to see how this is going to go differently than Tamao's route. It'll definitely be interesting. I hope it's a little bit less anticlimactic at the end, even though it won't be like the true end. It was 5 in the morning. Though it was early summer, the sky was still dark at that hour. Most students were probably in their beds, enjoying the final moments of their dreams. Normally, after waking up, I trained in my room. I had no real reason for breaking the routine, but I moved to the living room instead. If there was a reason, it would have been the fact that I'd woken up in the wrong state of mind. I controlled my body, mind, and heart using yoga and other techniques, so having a bad morning was extremely rare. After guzzling some water in the kitchen, I stabilized my mind using the ancient Egyptian breathing of Geb. Someone silently walked down the stairs behind me, but I still noticed them, of course. Sorako! Oh, and you're wearing your glasses, too. I received no response. Instead, she gave me a cold look. It was a very weak reaction, especially for someone as sociable as her. Suddenly, an eerie feeling made goosebumps appear on my neck. Her appearance hadn't changed, but the figure standing in the middle of the stairs had an air about her that seemed very unlike the normal Sorako. I don't know, I'm telling you, it has something to do with her halo, okay? Because it's just too big of a coincidence that we kept seeing our sister, right? And confusing them. No, wait, that was Eru. Hold up. Was it Eru we kept mixing up? Yes. Not Sorako. Well, let's see. I know she gets memories, right? She walked down the stairs as if she had just woken up from a good dream. I know, you are acting very strange, I'll say that. She adjusted the frame of her glasses with her finger. They looked worn and aged, which felt very fitting. I don't know, do you want to talk with us about something? I took her up on that offer and we went for an early morning stroll. I wonder where she wanted to go at this hour. I mean, that's my favorite time of the day, is like right when the sun's rising. It's just, I hate getting up in the morning, so I don't usually see it too often. Also, went against Shinri Narita's creed to embarrass maidens by refusing them when they'd gather the courage to invite me. Dang, you're a terrible person. You get this girl to finally, like, confess, and then you're like, yeah, nah. Frickin' this guy. It was still dark out, and I left our destination all to her. Though, from what I could tell, she had no specific place in mind and merely walked wherever her whims took her. Because it's supposed to have like that look of elegance and nobility like we're supposed to have, whatever. She walked from one front gate pillar to the next as though dancing. Gosh, why is she acting so weird? It's almost like she's another person.
愚物として踏みにじることだ。恐れを知らぬ破壊だけがまだ見ぬものを作り出す力を生む。
I don't know. I think the future is very much inspired by the past, though. You know, it's kind of like fashion, you know, what's old eventually will become new again.
同時に言う人はそれまでの全てがなければ成立し得ない。石器時代に自動車を作り出せないように。失敗も成功も愚行も英知もいつか至るための素晴らしき過程だ。ここを作った男はそれをよくわかっている。だからこそ学園の入り口のモニュメントにこんな様式を選んだ。ここより始まり、いつか踏み越えていくために。
So you're saying it's like a symbol of the past that we need to move forward.
成田の話は難しすぎてよくわからないな。
She turned around with the lightness of a feather, walking through the still empty academy with the innocence of a child playing in puddles after the rain. I'm very curious what's going on here.
この時間だとさすがにまだ誰もいないか。
誰もいない場所をまだ暗い空の下で歩く散歩も心地いいものだよ。特に麗しい乙女と一緒ならば。
Narita always flirting.
次はあっちだ。
She pointed at the rose garden. The vibrant plants were still in full bloom, just as they were when I'd first arrived. Once the thick scent reached her nose, she finally stopped in place.
さて、ここには我々以外の誰もいないし、近づいてくればすぐにわかる。当然、サクたちの耳にも入るはずもない。なので、そろそろいいのではないかね。
Thinking that the time had come, I said that, making Sorako look as if she had been caught up pulling a prank.
そうか。成田には分かってたのか。
Wait, realized what?
答える代わりに問いかけよう。我が前に立つ見知らぬ影はいかなる闇より訪れたのか。あるいは、あのまばゆき雲の狭間から降り来たのかと。
大げさだね。まったくつくづく。私は桂木空子だよ。お前やサクたちの知ってる空子とは違うけどね。
Hold up, do you have like a split personality?
私は空子の別人格みたいなものだ。
Interesting. Okay, we're gonna go down this route. Alright, that's fine with me. She revealed that in the most casual manner, as if she was simply discussing the weather. That would make sense, that Sorako maybe has a split personality, because I was trying to figure out how in the world Sorako was an Etoile. Like, I don't want to diminish her accomplishments, it's just she seems like she doesn't really have much going for her. Like, cool, you know, that she can, like, see people's, like, memories and see, like, the scars and stuff. That doesn't really make you, like, on par with any of the other girls, though, right? So, maybe this has something to do with it. Her non-dramatic confession left me speechless for a moment. I certainly didn't think her response would be so concise and simple.
多重人格だと。
Otherwise known as dissociative identity disorder, or DID. A name for a phenomenon where a single body contained two or more personalities. It was said that an American criminal from the late 20th century had as many as 23 personalities with different character traits, tastes, and even genders.
あれ、思ったよりも驚かないんだな。結構な衝撃の事実でサプライズ告白のつもりだったんだけど、もしかして私失敗したか？
I'm curious why she's revealing this to us.
いや、それなりには驚いているとも。とはいえ、その昔古典ホラーの名手が多重人格をテーマにした映画で一世を風靡した頃とは違う。今時存在だけならすっかりメジャーだ。私自身これまでにも出会った経験があるのでね。よくいるとまでは言わないが、チュパカブラや古代の墓守に比べればよほど出会いやすい。
Gosh, I remember seeing stuff about the chupacabra as a kid that scared the crap out of me.
なんだよそれ。チュパとか墓守とか。
いるところにはいるという代物なのだ。いずれ暇を見て成田真理南米魔法全18巻を語って聞かせよう。6巻の熱帯ジャングルの大追跡でチュパカブラが登場する。
Dang, I want to read these. Where can I find this?
いらない。
I like this Sorako. She ain't got no time for your crap.
それとだ。君の存在については以前からそんな気がしていた。
Indeed, Shinri Narita was not a man who missed the irregularities in Sorako Katsuragi. I still remember the moment Sorako put on those glasses during choreography. She herself claimed that it was just a trigger to activate her halo, but I saw the change in her expression. And at last, the proof had appeared before my very eyes.
ま、そこまで承知してるなら手間も省ける。お前は口数は多いけど余計なことをごちゃごちゃ突っ込まないから話が早くていい。
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't recognize that at all. That's probably something if you were really paying attention you could have noticed, but I didn't think about it.
お褒めに預かり光栄だ。それでわざわざこんな場所まで誘ったのはどういうつもりかね。もちろん私は乙女の誘いはできる限り断らない主義なのだが。
そりゃ。
Sorako's other half, who I decided to call Sorako B, was fundamentally different from the usual Sorako, who oftentimes was so considerate of others that it came at the expense of herself. Sorako B stood straight and looked me right in the eyes without a hint of fear or coldness in her
バ
gaze.
レる前に話しておこうと思ったんだ。ソラコには黙ってるように言われてたけど、隠してても時間の問題だしな。後でバレて惹かれると、その方が面倒だから。
So I'm wondering if this other part of Sorako, if maybe they're more like assertive, maybe more of, or I guess less feminine, because I'm still trying to figure out why Sorako kind of dresses in a boy's uniform. I feel like there's more to the story. I'm not trying to say that her other half is more male than female, but I'm just curious if that has something to do with it. Elegant petals gently danced in the warm morning wind. The rose was often considered to be the queen of flowers, and the girl before me had just enough dignity to fit in with them.
何が時間の問題なのかはさておき、理由は承知した。思ったよりも至極まっとうで結構なことだね。
I had no evidence, but I believe Sorako B's words nonetheless. Can we come up with a better name than Sorako B? It doesn't flow, you know? It doesn't sound right. And it wasn't because she had the same face as Sorako either. I simply didn't feel any malice coming off of her. With that settled, there was only one problem left to address.
私は女性の過去は詮索しない主義だ。特に豊満な女性の過去は。たとえ数千の男を破滅させ一国を傾けた毒婦であろうと、豊満な美しさは全てに勝ってあまりある。
I'm pretty sure in Narita's mind, if you have big breasts, you can do no wrong in this world. Like, that's kind of what I'm getting from what he's saying.
いいのか、そんなことで。私は自分が女だとか一言も言ってないぞ。
Oh, am I right? Was I on the right track to say that's why she wears a boy's uniform?
まさか違うのか。
Sorako's divine breasts were fake? Shut up, Narita. You're so dumb. No, wait. She was saying that Sorako B was a male personality. It wasn't uncommon for male personality disorder to create... Wait, what? MPD. Multiple personality disorder. Male personalities. I'm so dumb. I'm just as dumb as Narita sometimes, I swear. To create personalities of a gender different than the body. And in those cases, there have been observations of the body changing due to the mind. Could this mean that Sorako's voluptuousness would be lost? Would the gods truly allow such a heinous crime?
いや、女だって本気で動揺するなよ。見れば一発だろって見せられるのはソラコの体か。
ぜひ見せてくれたまえ。いや、言うまいと思ったが疑っているのだよ。証拠をこの目で見るまでは信用できない。だからさ、この早朝から麗しい豊満を見せてほしい。
You've literally already seen it, my guy. What do you mean?
いや、見せないし。どうしてそこまで本気で。
Hey, at least this side of her actually denies him and doesn't just say, oh yeah, I'll show you, sure. Gosh, that was so dumb.
そうか。残念だ。
Oh, I see. This was quite disheartening, but I had to focus on confirming something else for the moment. He sounds so disappointed.
仕方がない。先ほどの続きといこう。私は女性の過去は詮索しない主義だ。無論、君が実は平坦で人為的方法でその放満を作り上げたなどの冒涜的行為に手を染めていた場合は、断じて真実を明らかにしないではおかないのだがね。
Yes, he'll only look into the past if it's something to do with your breast.
絶対ない。
ならばよし。だが、ここではあえて主義を曲げて一つ問わせてもらうとしよう。君はいつから空子と同居しているのかね。
The scent of the roses seemed to become poisonous. Depending on her answer, Shinri Narita would be put in a precarious situation. She had Sorako's face, but her expression was unlike hers. It was challenging, with a cold grin.
多重人格の2つの人格の間で記憶というものがどうなるのか成田は知ってるか？得てしてオリジナルの権限が低い、主導権がない時間の記憶を持たないサブの方が全ての記憶を管理していたりする。
Whoa, what do you mean subs? This is a sub-dom thing?
聞いたことはある。それは交代人格の起源に由来するのだとか。
Oh, okay, sub-personality. Oh, okay. I'm reading into... Narita has ruined my mind, okay? I'm thinking of things I should not be. I was totally misinterpreting what she's saying. She's saying sub-personalities, you know, and talking about how when you're one person, the other one doesn't remember what's going on. I would imagine this part of Sorako remembers everything the other one does, but Sorako herself doesn't know everything that she does. If that makes sense.
私たちの関係はそれなりに便利にできてる。私が出てる時も逆の時もお互いに中で見聞きしてるか
ら。Okay.
ただし、それ以前のことまではわからない。
Okay. So once she had this other personality, she doesn't know anything from before that. Okay.
私が生まれて以降のことは私も全て知ってるが、それより前の記憶は空子だけのものだ。私もそこまで昔からいたわけじゃないから。
I wonder if this has something to do with her halo or maybe some kind of experimentation. We already know some of that crap's going on here, okay?
だから安心していい。そいつが誰なのか私にはわからない。
Just real quick though, so if you watched me play through Tamao's route, you can actually do Tamao or Sorako first, like either one. So if you haven't watched me play Tamao's route, I have already played through that and there is some spoilers, so just be aware of that. I'll probably say some things that happened in that route. And if you haven't watched that route already, you might get spoiled a little bit. Just letting you know. I should probably mention that at the start of the video, but, you know, whatever. I unconsciously reached for the lapis lazuli, decorating my uniform. This was a repeat of a conversation we once had after the explosion accident where Sorako saw my wound. So wait, was that Sorako right there? I'm so lost trying to, like, think back what's happened. There's been a lot, okay? A small girl clad in a white dress. It was a shattered portrait that remained within me, the symbol of a wound that would never heal and days that would never return. So that was her that we saw. The wound on my right hand throbbed.
いつも見えてるわけじゃないけど、時々はね。私たちのハローはそういう力だ。空子から聞いただろ?
Yes, indeedy. Naturally, Sorako B had the same halo as the original, the ability to see people's wounds. To see the wounds burned in the heart, into the hearts of others was the equivalent of peeking into secrets they wished to hide. And of course, every human had secrets. It wasn't a power as direct as Tamao's or Mitori's, and the fact that there was no defense against it made it far more terrifying. She risked drawing the ire of every HMI at the academy if something went wrong with her powers. She admitted that her halo was immature, and that was probably a blessing for those around her. In Sorako B's vision, there was Shinri Narita's wound, which took the shape of a girl. Sorako Katsuragi actually knew the girl's name, she just hadn't realized it yet, and the only reason Shinri Narita was still alive was the fact that her halo lacked precision.
はいはい、 そんなに睨むなよ。言い忘れてたけど、空子はまだ寝ていて意識がない。なので私とお前がこの場で何を話したか、話したこと自体空子にはわからない。
Gosh, this also reminds me a little bit of Parquet. I played that on my channel so many months ago. Had a split personality type deal going on like this too. It's very interesting. I like the concept of it. It opens up the opportunities of things that can happen.
そういうわけだよ、成田真理。お前が何をどういう理屈で警戒しているのか私にはわからないけれど、少なくとも今朝のことは空子に影響を与えない。
So what you're saying is he could grab your boobs and she won't know. Like, you probably shouldn't tell him that. He'll do it.
理解はしたとも。
She wasn't lying, meaning that I still had some time. Another thing that bothered me was that, when she was a child, Sorako Katsuragi didn't have a personality like Sorako B. Indeed, Shinri Narita knew young Sorako Katsuragi rather well. A smile akin to the spring breeze, a small frame that chased after us whenever we went outside to play. Like Sorako B explained, in NPD patients, the original's access to memories was generally limited. That was because the most widespread origin of NPD was escapism. Human minds created subpersonalities to bear their sins, essentially in a way of dealing with overwhelming mental or emotional trauma in order to protect their psyche. Of course, the original's rights were limited. The very fact that they could not access certain memories was by design, though it seemed to be different in the case of two Sorakos. With that in mind, what created Sorako B?
いや、詮索はするまい。
Well, if I remember correctly, Sorako was talking about how she didn't feel very accepted outside of the academy for having a halo. To Shinri Narita, this was a trifling issue. After all, she was nothing but... However, Sorako looked at me with sharp eyes full of hostility.
納得が得られたようだから本題に入ろう。
先ほどまでの自己紹介が本題ではないのかね。
もちろん違う。本題というのはつまりね、私はお前に文句を言いに来たんだよ、成田真理。こんなこと今しかできないだろう。空子が起きていると邪魔されてしまう。
Okay, now you're speaking my language. You want to get to the meat and potatoes of the meal, okay? I like it.
おや、これは私に何か至らぬことがあっただろうか。常日頃から女性の機嫌を損ねないよう心がけているのだが、不思議とヒシアもよく怒り出すのだよ。
Honestly, you probably upset her just because you do a lot of interesting things, you know, sexually harassing women, killing people, you know, very questionable things.
この天地の間には思いもよらぬことが多いものだ。するとこれがデートだと思っていたが、今朝はただの自己紹介で、本格的には次回ということで。
He thought it was a date.
全然思いもよってる。誰がデートなんか申し込むか、この変態。彼女を手ごめにしておいて。
I like this other side of her. I like her a lot. As I shrugged and sighed, she looked at me with cold eyes, the kind you use when staring at a slug eating away at a verdant plant.
記憶にない。
Shut up. No, you don't. Yes, Arvine, yes, you do. Don't even lie to her.
問題だろ、胸を。あんなに力いっぱい。
いかに女性の発言といえど、私にも見過ごせないことはあるのだよ。全面的に同意の上での美の探求を優に任せて手ごめとは、人聞きが悪いにも程があるぞ。さあ、今すぐ謝罪して賠償として君の胸を確かめさせてくれたまえ。
Gosh, this conversation's hurting my head. I'm not a molester, but let me apologize by letting me molest you. Okay.
真剣に頭がおかしいな。
神秘を司る高潔な魂のあり方を理解してもらえないとは残念だが致し方ない。かの大ガリレオがそうであったように、真理とは理解されがたいものなのだから。
The truth about what? That you like breasts and are willing to grab them, even at very inappropriate times?
とにかくだ。 お前には文句の一つも言ってやりたかった。あの時はぶん殴ってやろうと思ったら、空子に止められたからな。
Yeah, because Sorako was enjoying it a little too much, actually.
今日のところは、言いたいことはそれだけだ。
Her hostility disappeared, likely because she said all she had to. The girl bearing Sorako's face now looked aloof and detached, just like when she revealed her identity.
君の訴えの内容には議論すべきところが多いが、趣旨は理解した。しかし、そのためにわざわざここまで来たのかね。早朝に私が起きているのを見計らって。
サクたちには私のことは隠しているからね。みんなの前ではなるべく表に出ないようにしているし。やっぱり薄気味悪がるに違いないだろうから。
Curious. So she does trust us enough to reveal herself. I wonder what reason that is.
すると本人以外で君たちが二人と知っているのは
お前だけだよ、成田真理。あとは、いや、時のあたりは怪しいが、これでも隠れるのはうまいんだ。
Okune Yomase was the doctor in charge of us Etoiles. She was a sharp woman, so it wouldn't have been strange if she knew.
部外者として一言言わせてもらうなら、せめて友人には正直に話してみてはどうだろう。
Yeah, it is kind of interesting that she's hiding it from them. It sounds like she thinks that they'll think she's weird, but I don't know. It wouldn't seem weird to me.
冗談はよしてくれ。お前だって言えない秘密の一つや二つあるだろ。それにこれは空子の問題だ。とやかく言うのはやめてもらおうか。
Hey, to be fair, you brought this to us unsolicited, okay? So if we make some comments about it, like, I don't feel like that's wrong. Indeed, Shinri Narita did have secrets, the kind that can never be revealed to anyone, except Mao.
君の言う通りだ。誰しも秘密は抱えている。時にそれは友情よりも重い。君の判断に余計な口を挟んでしまったことを謝罪しよう。
空子はお前を大層気に入っている。さっきも言ったが、遅かれ早かれこのままだと隠せなくなりそうだったから先に話した。私の話はこれで終わりだ。
Okay, I mean, I guess that's fair. I mean, it's still a little strange that you went out of your way to do this. I think she mostly just wanted to talk to us and be like, hey, you're a pervert. Don't really care for you too much because of that. But, you know, I wanted to reveal this to you. Obviously, she, like I said, she has some level of trust with us.
おっと、この場でのことは空子には内緒だ。勝手に喋ったと分かったら怒られてしまう。あれだけアプローチして今更だと私も思うんだが、そのあたりは何とも。
Alright, we'll keep our mouth shut. She'll find out eventually anyways. I was once again reminded of how she grazed my head the night after the choreography incident. Sorako Katsuragi knew of Shinri Narita's past, which endangered my ability to fulfill my oath of vengeance.
ところでもう一つ尋ねたいことがある。私が空子の訪問をこの手で確かめたとき、君はどういった感じだったのかね。
今すぐ頭蓋骨を叩き割って脳みそ全部書き出すぞ。
The appropriate response.
いいとも。では空子が目を覚まさないうちに寮へと戻るとしよう。
Notice how he's not trying to grab her again. He knows that's a terrible idea. As we walked away, I remembered another important question.
私は君を何と呼べばいい？
別に空子で十分だろ。
Yeah, but that's weird, because you're not the Sorako I know, okay? Her response was very curt. Alright, I guess we'll call her Sorako. That's gonna be real weird if later they both start talking at the same time or something. Soraka and I returned to the dorm. It was still 6 in the morning. I assumed if anyone was awake at that hour, it would have been Tamao, but it's gonna be like Saku or somebody. That day, of all days, I met in a most unexpected face.
二人で散歩だったのかな。僕も行けばよかったよ。まだ目覚める前の風景というのは趣がある。さぞかし絵心を刺激されたことだろうね。
You know what? Shut up, Taigi. I don't like you anymore. I've decided that after, you know, being around you for a little while. Taigi Mikado, the one freshly minted 7th Etoile who had joined the dorm as though replacing Mitori Kabutoyama.
確かに何者にも代え難いひとときだった。藍色の朝日、世をとどめた雲、まだ冷気を含んだ風。ジャパニーズわびさびメソッドの深淵に触れたような心地とはこのようなものか。
Yeah, Soraka, that's how I feel when I see Taigi too now. I thought he was cool at first, and then now he's just like an arrogant prick, and I don't like him. She clicked her tongue because we ran into someone unexpected. Sorako B silently hid behind me, avoiding Taigi's gaze.
それにしても今日は随分と早い起床だな、大義。普段はもっとゆっくりしているのに。さては悪い夢にでもうなされたのかね。
気分の問題だよ。たまには早くベッドを抜け出てみたくなる時もある。そんな時は得てして世界が思わぬ秘密を囁いてくれるのさ。
Yeah, you got information that you shouldn't be privy to. And it was kind of interesting how you showed up there at the plant at the end and did something kind of crazy. I wonder what his motives are. He really seems to be a character that we know a lot and a very little about at the same time. Oh my gosh, we're doing this scene again. We always have this side panel look of him looking one way, we're looking the other way. And then we kind of talk to each other while, like, not looking at each other. He was the chairman's son who joined the Etoiles on extremely short notice. Thus, I had no choice but to consider both the circumstances of his appearance and his position artificial. Yeah, it was definitely... he was put here, for sure. If he was the one behind this, then what was his goal? Did he perhaps suspect Shinri Narita? No, I hadn't left any evidence of involvement. Even if he had a sneaking suspicion, he had no way to confirm it. If I panicked and acted without care, I risked falling straight into a trap. There was no doubt in my mind that he was vigilantly waiting for me to slip up. Yeah, I think he was kind of just not a student before, so that he had freedom to just kind of move around. That's why he was allowed on the campus, but he wasn't a student, so he didn't have, like, the limitations of having to go to class and things like that. But now, I think that Kurofune maybe is onto Shinri a little bit. And so I think Taigi's kind of here to make sure nothing bad happens, you know? He's keeping a close eye on everybody.
相変わらず大義は詩人だ。世界のささやく秘密か。そういうものがあるのなら、私もぜひ聞いてみたいものだよ。
I acted like a friend, but with a sense of familiarity that felt empty. It was extremely easy after all. I just had to remember. Taigi stared straight at me. I was aware of how his languid yet sharp and penetrating pupils pierced into my heart. We were both completely aware of the coldness hiding behind our acts of friendship, and neither of us let our thoughts slip out.
ところで、この間描いていた絵はどうしたのかね。
今作はなかなか気に入ったよ。だから着彩もするつもりでいるんだ。
It was no exaggeration to call this act comical, but we continued the dance regardless. He had a sketchbook on him, probably because he wished to head out for some early morning practice, and he showed me one of the things he drew.
エドガードが顔負けの大義の探求心には恐れ入る。
From what I saw last time, his sketchbook contained nothing but maids. A man of culture. And so I compared him to the genius painter, I know he just pronounced that, I didn't remember. Edgar Degas, who was notably obsessed with ballerinas.
じゃあ僕は朝食まで部屋にいる。
Oh, Sorako's back. Sorako walked up the stairs without waiting for my response. Taigi, Sorako, and I. It was a moment that lasted no more than a few seconds. But it felt like the clock had rewound a whole 7 years. I know, that is weird. I'm curious if they're gonna, like, go back and show us some scenes from that, instead of just showing that picture. The foremost issue on my mind was the appearance of Sorako B. During the first lesson of the day, I sat in my seat, lost in thought. From what Sorako B said this morning, she was Sorako's ally, but I didn't know if I could take that at face value. She appeared before me while Sorako was asleep, meaning she had her own will and goals. Honestly, it felt like I had another Etoile at my side. I couldn't predict what she would do. I had to find out her motives as soon as possible, or get rid of her if need be. How are you going to get rid of her without getting rid of Sorako? Like, what? Also, there was another thing I had to worry about.
おはよう、成田。
Yeah, you gotta worry about that maid. Hate to tell you, but Sorako's not as strong of a fighter as Tamao was. Took 2 of you just to kill 1 maid. As usual, Taigi Mikado sat by my side like it was his designated seat. His maid stood by him. Still think that's bullcrap that we can't have Hishia here, but he can have his maid. I still didn't know his motives either. The most reasonable and likely scenario was that he was sent to investigate me by Kurofune. He often stared at me with a piercing gaze. Was that it, really? I also think it could be partly Taigi's own will. As we saw, you know, in Tamao's route, it seems like Taigi does have his own motives, and they don't necessarily align with Kurofune's. I'm curious to know more about what happened to him in between the time that this picture happened and now. Taigi used to be a silent boy who had a fiery passion inside. At the very least, he never looked this disinterested.
考えるな。理由を問うのは余計なことだ。必要なのは帝大義がどのような懸念になるのか。
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Depression's a hell of a thing. Like it can change you. You can go from a very happy and bright individual, you know, as a kid, to being more depressed and cynical looking at life as you get older. And yeah, it can make you very disinterested in things, or very forgetful. That could be the case with him. I don't know.
残る敵は3人。奴らにふさわしい末路をくれてやるまで邪魔されるわけにはいかない。
It's very interesting that he says the second act. I know he's talking about like, hey, I killed the first one, so we're in the second act, but we're also kind of in the second act in the sense that we just did Tamao's route, which was like our first act, and now we're in the second act. I'm reading into it too much. I stopped that train of thought, focused on the class, and heard the beautiful talk of the maidens.
この間、超ムカつくブログがありました。ラーメンにバター入れたがるやつはしねえ。腹が立つので掲示板荒らしする寸前で、サクに超怒られてしまいました。
Yeah, I can't say of anyone putting butter in ramen. I've heard of people putting butter on noodles, but not necessarily ramen.
ところ相手構わず噛みつくけだものか、お前は。
Funny coming from you, Tamao.
サク、朝食欲なかったみたいだけど、平気？ご飯、
yes.
お茶碗に2杯しか食べないなんて。
Only 2 bowls of rice. I'm someone who eats a lot of rice, so 2 bowls isn't much for me.
いいの。ダイエット中なの。
You're on a diet? What do you mean? You're always eating candy.
全くもって素晴らしい。学園なる制度は美を司る神の作りたもうた至宝に違いない。
Sitting in the classroom and observing the beautiful thighs, collarbones, napes, and vivacious bodies of girls had become a part of my daily routine. Yeah, I bet. That's the kind of guy you are. It's a little weird, but that's who you are. You know, I think like every guy's probably done that at some point, though. Let's be honest. Sorako obviously stood among the friendly maidens. Her halo allowed her to see others' wounds, and since she couldn't control her power, she saw what all of her friends wanted to hide most.
彼女たちも大したものだ。
That is interesting. I would think, like, if you knew what really hurt somebody, you would probably be a more caring person. You'd be like, oh, well, you're really nice, but you had this thing that hurt you a long time ago. Like, you know, that's very commendable. Or it would help her to be more understanding of someone who's maybe a little bit meaner, but had something in their past that was pretty tragic. So you'd be able to, like, I guess, relate to them more and be like, hey, I know what you've been through. In my eyes, there didn't seem to be any hint of hostility or wariness between them. In fact, I only saw pure familiarity. I couldn't tell whether the source of their friendship was their trust in each other, sympathy as fellow HMIs, or their readiness to accept each other as monsters. However, even as an outsider, I knew that the road that led to this relationship was not a simple one.
美しきかな、友情。
Freaking, he sounds like a Might guy from Naruto. He's talking about youth and stuff, and he's like so reminiscent of it.
誰もが彼女たちのように振る舞えるのかな。
What are you trying to say, Taigi? You want to fight me? I'll fight you right now. Let's go outside. Taigi spoke as if reading my mind. He looked firmly ahead, making it seem like he didn't really care about his own words.
大義も HMI だ。理解者は欲しくないのかね。
他人を 本当の意味で理解する方法はないよ。
He had a point. To add to that, Shinri and Narita had also no need for someone who understood him.
同じような問題はこのスクールにおそらくいくつもある。眠る不発弾のように。
What are you trying to say, Taigi? There's a lot of problems with this academy, and I'm here to solve them. Permanently.
君はどうかな、成田真理。あらゆるハローを前にしても聖人君子でいられるだろうか。
With any and all halos.
大義はどうかね。秘密の一つもない人間はいないというのが通説だが。
I don't know, Narita. Didn't you say earlier that it was rude to answer a question with a question?
もちろん僕はただの人間だとも。
He avoided answering properly, but he was not wrong. His words spoke of how difficult it was to manage a 200-strong group of HMIs. There was probably a few cases like Sorako's in the academy. Not everyone could live the way that Etoiles did. The relative peace of the academy was merely a front that hid a delicate balance that was on the verge of collapse. I had no choice but to admit that Kurofune Mikoto's skills had kept this fragile balance alive. I stopped mulling over my thoughts and focused on the endless exchange between the crowns once more. Their conversation had taken a darker turn.
もう終わったことを蒸し返すのはやめなさい。
For whatever reason, the main subject of their conversation was the classmate who had vanished in the thin air, Mitori Kabuteyama.
でも何も言わずにいなくなるのは変だってサクだって言ってたでしょ。あれ以来メールの返事だってないし。
Sorako put a finger on her lip and furrowed her brow, a feminine gesture that contrasted with her boyish uniform.
あいつはついていけなくなったんだろ。それでやめた。仕方ないじゃん、そんなの。
Not quite, but sure. Tamao spat out those words in a rough manner, her legs dangling on the desk in front of her. With enough observation, one could clearly tell that despite her delinquent image, she had a sense of modesty and took great care in protecting it. Under normal circumstances, she would have never thrown out her legs and put herself at risk of having her panties exposed, which was quite unfortunate. Have you ever read the most useless piece of dialogue that you don't need to say that, and you do anyways? Freaking Narita, making me read this crap. Today was different, however. She gave off the aura of a wild animal trying to put on a display of intimidation.
やめるって思い出しましたが、やめるのやって字はどうして舌が辛いって書くんですかね。ブータン人かよ。
Japanese kanji for tongue and spicy.
ブータン料理って辛いのか。
辛いですよ。唐辛子にチーズかけて焼いただけとかいう料理もあるとか。
I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. Compared to the other three, Ero seemed unaffected. She had acted about the same as ever over the course of the last 2 weeks. Ero wasn't very expressive, so it was hard to read how she truly felt. For all I know, she actually didn't care about what had happened. No, I have a friend that's kind of like her. They are really good at, like, I guess brushing off things and not focusing on them. So I understand how she kind of acts a little bit. The Crown's relationships were complex, and since they were Etoiles grade HMIs, Shinri and Narita didn't have the option of ignoring them. I had to be careful around them. No matter how large the dam, it could be brought down by a hole as wide as a needle. Tamao ended the conversation, stood up, and went to the hallway with an aura of dejection about her. It was hard to call out to her, but one was strong enough to do it.
どこ行くの？もうすぐ授業始まるよ。
用事。すぐ帰ってくる。遅れたら空子が適当に言い訳しといてくれ。
Dang, what are you trying to do, Tamao? In the end, no one stopped her as she left the classroom.
たまおちゃん、最近一人でどっか行っちゃうことが多いね。夕食に間に合わないこともあるし。
I wonder if even in this route, she's still enacting her plan.
元が野良犬みたいなキャラですから、どこか遊び場所を見つけたのでしょう。
Yeah, something like that. Sorako tried to play the devil's advocate again, but when faced with the gloomy atmosphere, she had no choice but to fall silent.
やっぱり仕方ないよね。そうね。
いつまでも終わったことにこだわるよりもクラウンの責務を果たしましょう。私たちにはやるべきことが多いのだから。
That is indeed true. You guys do have a lot of stuff and responsibilities. Sorako slumped her shoulders and walked back to her seat. Our eyes met. It was no accident. I was looking at her.
成田くんは気にならない？みとりちゃんのこと、それに玉緒ちゃんのこととか。
私はサクと同じ意見だよ。人の生きる道はそれぞれだ。振り向くよりも前を向いて己の道を模索し進む方がずっとためになる。特に麗しい乙女はそうであるべきだ。
Yeah, we're not in her route anymore. We don't care. She can do whatever she wants. And Mitori, we already know what happened to her. My words didn't match my thoughts, but they still came out naturally. However, there were certain things in this world you had to do before moving forward. Okay, I'm actually going to make this episode pretty short. This was a good introduction to Sorako's route, and then we got to see a different side of Sorako, quite literally. I know I say that sometimes, but this is quite literally a different side of her, okay? But interesting stuff going on. I'm curious how this route's going to be different than Tamao's route. I'm wondering if they're going to kind of go the same way, just in a little bit of a different sense, or if we're going to find out something completely different about the Academy that we didn't know before. I'm really hoping that's the case. I think that'll be fun. And it's been a good start. A little bit different, I will say that. A little bit, I wouldn't say slow, but it's just, we're kind of getting into it still. So hopefully it'll be good. But anyways, guys, appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next episode.